all, and a very good evening. Welcome to the weekly podcast. So, I'm your host, Gurtej Atwal, with my co host, Rajdeep Singh, and he will be adding value from the perspective of Parks and Recreation Commission in Tracy. He is serving as a commissioner there. And we have a special guest here, Mary Matrakas, with us. So, we all know Mary's contribution towards the city. She is always there to bring to our attention what's happening around, always vigilant, a guide to many of us. So, but we'll request Mary to please share some of her personal and professional journey as well as her affiliations with the city and how she is seeing the city of Tracy growing as a fast pace, but still having its family oriented values intact.
Thank you, Gurtej, and thank you, Raj, both of you, for asking me to join you this evening and specifically to talk about parks. Parks are near and dear to my heart. I grew up here in Tracy, and it was quite different when I was up. It was much, much, much smaller than it is now. And when I went off to college, I went to UC Santa Barbara, and I was quite surprised to see how much there's forests and open land. There's how many parks there were. And when I came back, because Tracy was a very small farming community, there was a lot of open space around town, but it's all private. It's not. There isn't that much park space. So I realized that what we need is we need a lot more open space around here and a lot of more parks. And so I was actually appointed to the county's Parks and Recreation Commission. And I served on the San Joaquin County Parks and Recreation Commission for 11 years. And actually what happened was I was appointed to the city council, and that was when I had to give up my seat on the County Parks and Recreation Commission. And I learned so much while I was on the Parks and Recreation Commission about how parks operate and what it requires, what it takes. And then from my time on the city council, I also learned a lot more about just how local government works in general. So I see that it is, you do have to kind of stay on top of what our local government officials are doing and pretty much watch them all the time. And I think that makes for a better community. I saw a woman in downtown Tracy just last week. She was working in an office, and she told me that she had been here in Tracy for, I think, 20 or 25 years, and that she's a little concerned because it seems to her that Tracy is growing so fast all of a sudden that she doesn't want to see it lose the homey feeling, is how she put it. And I thought that was very interesting because I understand how she feels. I see that, I get that. There are many, many families here in Tracy. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's a great thing. And one of the things that's really the best for families is to spend time in parks. There's a lot of different parks around Tracy. We have about 80 parks in Tracy now. So I think that it is important to maintain the traditions of the small town that we have had in Tracy. And I'm sure, as Raj can attest, most of the parks in the city of Tracy are named for individual people who have contributed a lot over the years as the course of the years have rolled on. They've made great commitments to Tracy. And I would like to see that tradition continue, because I think that is one of the things that leads to a hometown feel. And I think that it is an issue that is worth discussing and talking about. So that's why I first came across it. I saw Raj at the Parks and Recreation Commission. I thought there was going to be a discussion on another topic, but I also knew they were going to be talking about naming a park. And I know Raj has some ideas about how that has happened and how that has come down lately, that it's become maybe, I don't know, Raj, do you think it's controversial now or not?
First, let me just kind of start off with saying what you have been doing in the community. That's wonderful. And Mary, and I think I pretty much see you in different commissions, meetings, and councils to make sure the people who are sitting on different commissions, board, and the council, they're accountable for what they have been appointed or elected. And that's this every citizens of the city needs to be doing that. And second, we're just discussing today that there's a different policies and procedures naming the parks. And the best place I can point is I'm not a policymaker, but the best place is to find for it's a public information to look into the what are the guidelines for from the Parks and Recreation Department to uh, uh, give a name or nominate a name or to how what's the procedure to submit the name for a park to have that name and how does it get approved. So recently in my I think it's I'm completing I got appointed in 2019 and now it's almost been 3 years. So this is the first time I'm in this process where the Parks and Recreation Department receives the applications from the citizens of the Tracy, city of Tracy. And last, I think, week ago or week and a half ago, our Parks and Recreations meeting was held where Mary was attending. A lot of other folks from city of Tracy, they attended as well. And there were about 10 or 11 different applications were submitted with the different names to be nominated for a park, linear park in the Tracy Hills. So that's a little bit of the, the, the explanation of how the process works. So people submit the application to a city of Tracy's Parks and Recreation Department with all their the contributions, all their information that why are they choosing, what's their relationship is, what kind of contribution this person has done in the past, and why this person needs to be nominated or be picked up or for this park. So once those applications are received and the closing date is done, then it comes to the Parks Commission, one of the five commissioners, and we have to prioritize those applications. For example, if you receive 10 applications, I'm making a hypothetical number, and we've been asked by the council that hey, we need to pick a one name, give us the top three priorities as a recommendation to a city council that what your commission thinks that those names would be. So among five of us, open in the public in the meeting, we discuss and we give our point of view and we rate different names, different applications that hey, these should be the top three names that we are recommending for a city council. So that's exactly what happened in the past meeting as well, where we looked at the different application and we voted on this is my top three priorities: priority number one, priority number two, priority number three, and then the commission decides like, oh, what are the top three? Are we agreeing with all the three choices? If there's disagreement, we discuss and figure it out. And last time I think it was a very pretty smooth process where all the commission agreed to vote on the same three names, and those got recommended to a city council. And I'm not sure when it would be on the council's agenda, so look forward for that. So then council is the one who actually have the final authority to decide what would be the park's name. So that is what the procedure and the process is for naming a park from the Parks and Recreation Commission side.
Yes. I was there at the meeting when this discussion took place, and I thought, honestly, what I thought was I was happy that I wasn't having to serve up on the board right then, because I thought it would be a very difficult decision to make, a very difficult decision to go through, to have to go through all of those people who have all done such wonderful things for the city for such a long time and choose one of them over all of the others and then a couple more. So well, I think that the Parks and Recreation Commission did a wonderful job, and each one of the commissioners did a good job of explaining how they came up with their choice for the name. And obviously, of course, among all five commissioners, there were different choices. But I was really impressed with how the Planning and Recreation Commission was able to talk. The commissioners talked among themselves and worked it out, and they came to a consensus. And it really didn't even take that long, I didn't think. And it seemed like in the end, everybody was pretty happy with what they had decided, what they had come up with. And those are the list of names that are going to be presented to the city council at some time in the near future. I would expect sometime in the next 30, 60, or 90 days, it will go to the commission, to the council. So I happened to be interested in some other business when I went to the planning commission and saw Gertej at the planning commission. And I knew that as well, that the Avenues was making a presentation for you probably can say it better than I can, what they were doing there, Gertej. But I noticed that and I remembered that when they had first made their application for Ellis, that they had all of their drawings and documents, and they had a park that they called Village Green. And when I saw that on all of the documents, I honestly thought, oh, well, that's kind of a quaint little name as a placeholder, to sort of underline the fact that this is a park. And I have to tell you that a couple of years later, when everything got built, I was actually quite surprised to find out that the name of that park is Village Green. And that in Ellis, there are at least 2 other parks right now that are being named with similar kinds of names. One of them is the Schoolyard Park, and the other one is the Dog Park. And I thought, that does not follow along with the way that the city of Tracy generally names parks. Typically, both of you, parks are named for people around here, or something, like a view or something that's local right there right where you are, or maybe for like Veterans Park or something like that, but not just these kind of generic names. So I thought that was the only thing that I wanted to say about the Avenues, was that if the only change, I asked the planning commission if they could change, just not even change it, just remove the name, remove the wording, because they had up their Central Park, and just take it out, because it's going to be the city council who's going to choose the name, I thought.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Mary. So there has to be a set process, and every project has to follow the same process. So now the thing is, these scenarios were not coming before, especially City of Tracy, for long. But now, as City of Tracy has the opportunity, new developments are coming along. So these scenarios are coming in front of us. So we have a policy that the City of Tracy has set. So I'll share it along on the screen as well. So this policy was drafted, as Raj and Mary mentioned. So this policy says, so the name, nobody's suggesting or advocating any name. So the name could be as an American culture, wildlife, based on a tree, based on some respected person that correlates to the city of Tracy. But the main objective is that decision should be coming from the citizens. As to name a child, their parents, their family, they have the right to name it. So based on that, the city of Tracy, they adopted a policy, so where all citizens, they can propose, then the Parks and Recreation Commission, they'll prioritize it, then it gets implemented. So in Tracy Hills, as Raj mentioned, that process was followed, and the parks is going to be named. It will go from Parks and Recreation Commission to council. It will become a name based on the recommendation of the citizens. So the same process has to be followed across the board. So I was just reading, so we have more than 900 streets as well as parks, so that are in recognition of MLK. So we have a national holiday that is recognizing MLK. So these things are for generations to come. So anybody once they resonate, once they hear that name, nowadays we have street names, everybody uses the applications to follow the addresses. So those are their own museums. Once they click something, once they read the street, those names resonate in their minds. The JFK airport, or we know the Disney World is there. So everything, every name has its own meaning.
Yes.
So we as a city are growing, and this legacy is for our generations to come. They should know what their citizens contributed. There are many contributions that are being done by our citizens who maybe unfortunately are not with us, but their legacy should continue. So we should take these opportunities, naming a street, naming a park. So the process that we have, citizens should have the say to just get those implemented. And Mary, in your thought, because you are around this city as well as across the other cities, so you may have seen these names and maybe resonated with them. So from your thought process, from your opinion, how do you feel once you see a name, how it resonates in mind, and does it add value to your life or somebody you have heard? So yeah, these names do add value in somebody's life.
Yes. And I think that part of what they add, like for instance, there is a park, quite a large park in North Stockton that's called Swenson Park. And it was named after a gentleman who was up there who was very active in sports and in parks and outdoor life. And it's quite some time back. He lived a couple of generations ago, but I never knew him personally. I know some of his kids and grandkids, but I think it's a wonderful thing. And I think the same is true here in Tracy, that it is a way to sort of honor the people who came before and also the contributions that they made. I will tell you that I like the idea, the Parks and Recreation Department. My understanding is that they are considering starting to put plaques in each park that has a person's name or a family's name, describing exactly what the contributions were that those people made to the city. And that makes sense to me because I grew up here. And so I am quite familiar. I don't know everybody. There's, 80 parks in Tracy, but I know a lot of the people who have had parks named after them. I don't know all of them, but I realize that as the years roll on, people are going to come afterwards who will not know who they were. And so I think it will be helpful to have a plaque that will describe what those people did. And I think partly this is one of the hallmarks of Tracy. This is how you know that you're in Tracy. This is one of the things that Tracy does.
Right.
And if we start to go away from this now, I think that this is one of the ways that we lose the hometown feeling of Tracy. I think so. I think it is important to continue this tradition. I think traditions are typically important anyway. And so this is one tradition that I think should be continued and should be supported.
Right. So now we are in an era or in a time where this city is growing at a tremendous or at a fast pace. So earlier that was not the in question, the traffic, the homelessness, how the city is growing in terms of its diversity. As you mentioned, you met a friend in downtown, so she was worried, oh, my hometown feel that is going away. And that's true too. So you take your time to research or have an opportunity to see what's happening around in the city with respect to park, with respect to transportation, with respect to homelessness, or meeting your friends and they tell you what they feel. So my question is, so how do you get this information? So like this instance you have mentioned about the avenues or the Ellis Park or Tracy Hills Park, everybody is busy in their day-to-day lives. Sometimes they're not aware where to find this kind of information, because these are very valid information. This is not here for a temporary time. These are here to stay for coming generations. So how anybody who is listening to us, if they want to add value or see what's happening around in their city, so what would be the right resources from where they can just skim through maybe once a month what's happening in their city, and what are the options for them to get involved? So what are the avenues where they can ask questions or get involved?
That's a good question. And Gurtej, I'll tell you, I think that it can be a little bit difficult to stay, because this is actually kind of really, I mean, a lot of people, I can understand, a lot of people would think that this is kind of a minor issue, especially in light of all of the things that are going on in the country and around the world today. You know, who really cares about the name of a park? And it can be difficult to find out. I myself and my husband Pete, we happen to be at both of these meetings, and our primary interest was for another item that was on the agenda, but this came up at both meetings. And so I would say that I know that for ordinary people, it can be difficult to stay on top of what's happening at the city. The city's so large and it's so complex. But one thing I can suggest is that I think, well, actually, now that I start thinking about it, I can think of a couple of things.
Right.
I think that the two of you do a very good job of making sure that news is disseminated out into the community. And I would just encourage people, if they are asked to, if they are concerned about a particular issue, that they get in touch with their council person and or go to the commission meeting, which I understand can be difficult because they're during the week and they're late at night. A lot of people commute in around here, and that's really hard. But you can always send an email to your council person, and it's pretty easy. I think it's the person's name with a dot in the middle of it, and it's at thecityoftracy.org. Or you can send it just to council@cityoftracy.org, and then all of the council members get it. All 5 of them get it. You just sent one email saying, these are my thoughts. Or if you have questions, you certainly can ask questions, and somebody at the city will respond to you. I have to say, they are pretty good about that part of it. So I think that the both of you are helping a great deal, even just, by doing this and being out in the community, and particularly serving on the boards that both of you do. And so you know what's going on. And just because you're able to get out and about and talk to people in the community. And I would say that I would just ask other people, when you say to them or ask them, I have been calling people here lately and asking them to turn out to the city council meetings, because that's where the final decision is going to be made.
Right. So Mary, as everybody has their different expertise, you had earlier the exposure of working with the parks department, so you can easily disseminate the information or just see what's happening in that domain. Maybe somebody working in transportation industry, they can quickly see what are the issues, pain points, or somebody helping the veterans or the homeless. So everybody has their own expertise. They can get that information easily, and there are mechanisms they can go and they can share it with the council or the commission. So Raj, as you are sitting on the Parks and Recreation Commission, so as everybody isn't on time crunch, those meetings does happen over the weekdays in the evening time. So what are the options and opportunities? So one thing would be, a meeting has a set agenda. So if somebody has a point that is related to the agenda, can they speak there? If somebody has a point that is not related to the agenda item, do they still have the opportunity to speak at the meetings? Emails, phone calls. So what are the options and opportunities for a citizen who is worried about something? Again, coming back to the same example, as Mary met a friend, so she thinks that hometown feel will no longer be there. So she has a point. So what are the options and opportunities in terms of a commission meeting? how a normal citizen can communicate.
Great, great. First of all, I just wanted to point out what Mary just said. It's important for people to get involved, and you're emphasizing on that. But obviously, everybody has their life priorities, and they can't join all the meetings. They can't be attending the council meeting. But one specific point I want to start off my conversation regarding your questions with that. I think it's every so there are two different phases, right? Let's just take a hypothetical example, talking about the naming the park process or procedure or whatever we want to call. The final decision we know that going to happen at the council, but I think it's equally important to be involved from the parks or the planning or the transportation or the art, whatever that topic is related to, because that's where the preliminary information is coming from. That's where the recommendations are being made. And when you are making your voice heard, I think it should be equally from each platform. But obviously, if we can't be on the two platforms together, at least go to the one that's having a final authority, that's a city council. And now talking about it, different avenues, options, how we can get involved and contribute our time and our input to our beautiful city. And as we are taking up our families and working all together, we're living in a technology arena right now. That's the era going on. I can't say that 100% people knows how to use the online services, but I can at least 60-70% people know how to email, message, Google it, go online, and find a phone number, call us, a city clerk or the city of Tracy. Hey, I wanted to put this note or give this message to our mayor, give this message to our council members, and I wanted to give this message to this department's head or a director or something like about this specific topic. That's a one way of doing so. And second, talking about if you're coming to a meetings, for example, you're coming to, I'm talking more on the Parks and Rec because I'm sitting on that, or any other commission meeting or council meeting, all of them have a similar flow of those meetings. After starting at each meeting, the first item is that, is there anybody in the public would like to speak about something that is not on the agenda item? So that's question number one that you ask. If something is not on the agenda item and you only have time that day and you cannot wait for other time for the agenda to come up, go ahead and speak up. It's in the beginning of the meeting. It's majority of those meetings are starting, public meetings are starting at 7. By I think 7:15 or 7:10, that's where the item kicks in. So be there, speak about it. If something you don't see on the agenda, if something is on the agenda, obviously you would have to wait that day for that time or that agenda item to kick in. So those are different options that you can utilize. If you cannot do that, obviously, like I said, shoot an email, send an email, make an arrangement. Maybe if you don't know how to send an email, I'm pretty sure your neighbor, your community member, or your friend can help you to do so. End of the day, the conclusion is each and every person's voice is imperative in making these decisions in our city, because that's how you can make your town better, beautiful, safe, however you like it to be drafted or crafted in your way. And it's beautiful. I think that's the beauty of the democracy, that you can go and make your voice heard. And talking about the parks, a lot of people, like Mary said, she said very many good points, and one of them, people think there's so much happening around the world, so much happening at the national level. Who cares about it? It's a park's name, whatever. You can put this. Sure, we can think that way too. But all these things, the people, let's just use an example of somebody that you probably know been contributing so much. Maybe your not neighbor is doing so much, and you are appreciating of your neighbor. You're telling your family, you're telling your friends. That matters. So when somebody is doing so much in the town in different ways, when I sat on that commission meeting to pick 3 names, there was every single person submitted the application. They had done so much. It was not like somebody did more than somebody. They had different ways to give back, and it just makes you like give you shed a different light on you that, hey man, we are sometimes get into a nitty gritty of different things where we don't even see a bigger picture. These people, they did so much for our community, and now this is a time that, like Mary said, we can make this town a mark of that, that people, It's city of Tracy is known for giving the names to the buildings, to the other places, or to remember those people. It's just not only, oh, they have a name on it, it's actually creating a legacy to teach the coming generation, hey, this is what this town's values were, and this is the town's values are. How, if we are going somewhere else, we can kind of think about that. Hey, this is how we used to do things. This is how much we give back to. That's the kind of belief we did in this town. So I think those are very, very deep points. And if somebody takes it seriously, it means a lot. If somebody doesn't, you can't change that person thinking. But that's, I think, this is what we need to discuss and think and kind of contribute back. Hey, this is what I want, and this is what I want from my elected officials, because they're sitting there because I voted for them, and they need to hear you, and they need to make that decision. Obviously, there's going to be other people too. They're like, no, maybe the other option is better. Sure, they have the equal right as you. End of the day, what matters, did you participate? If you did, if something did happen, that's okay, because you did try. If something did happen, and you would be so proud of yourself as well. So there you go.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. So as yeah, things are happening in the whole world, but this is our city. Our generations to come will be sitting here. So it's our responsibility to participate rather than complaining after 5 or 10 years. So why this happening? What happened? So it's our time to participate. So now is the time for the parks. So as we are having more and more developments in our city, more and more builders, they are developing different sections of our city. There's a set format. It is available with the City of Tracy Parks and Recreation Department. So citizens have the right to request. So what they think best should be the name of that park. So they can request it. Then it goes to the Parks and Recreation Commission. From there, the full process is followed. Everybody's being heard. Why do they want that particular park to be named that way? Then it will go to the city council. Then it'll get approved and we'll see that name. So we are not advocating any name. It can be any name based on a person's legacy, based on a tree, based on a so irrespective of, because in United States there are many street names, many park names that are based on the trees, or what was happening in that town, what was happening in that part of the society. So name can be anything, but citizens have the right to request, to just raise their voice, and it should be based on that. So Mary, so in your opinion, so as we are having this diversity in our city, so which areas will be coming? Like one is Tracy Hills, Alice. So are there other opportunities where we will be seeing more parks?
It is expensive to build a park, and when you are building houses, you have to provide streets, you have to provide parks, you have to provide land for schools. The larger the community that you're building, the more responsible you have to be to provide these things. And the fact of the matter is that the developers are not even required to build the park or to build the school or to even build the street. But if they don't do that, they have to pay to have somebody else build it, which I'm sure you both realize is going to be more expensive than for the developer than they can build it themselves. That's what they do. They are builders. So that's why they do build most of the parks. But as soon as they build them and get them ready to go, they hand them over to the city. And the city is the one who owns, is responsible for, and maintains all of the parks and all of the streets and all of the other facilities in town that are public. And the school district gets the schools. They usually build their own schools as well. And the school district maintains them. But once a developer builds those things, they're handed over to the city, and the city has to take care of them in perpetuity, forever. I mean, we have parks in this town that are almost 100 years old now. And so the city has been taking care of them for almost 100. We have Ritter Park is the oldest one in town. It's the big sports field that's at the corner of Tracy Boulevard and Grant Line Road. And it is, it needs a lot of work and a lot of attention. I'm happy to see that the city council is willing to put the information, to put the work into maintaining it. But that's what they have to do. The city, as the residents, we have to make sure that the parks are maintained once we take them over. So, yes.
Right. So this is the time, as you mentioned, it's an expensive effort and it doesn't happen that frequently, that often. So
Right.
now is the time, as we are seeing new development, new housings. They will have new parks, new schools, new streets. So we have to be aware, we have to participate. So if we want to see a legacy with the name to that park, then we have to participate. So what are the options and opportunities now? So will there be an opportunity in front of the city council, Mary, or the Parks and Recreation Commission? So what do you suggest the citizens who wants to participate, how they can participate in this process?
I want to say first, before I answer your question, it just popped into my head that there is a park that's being built. It's sort of under construction now that the developer isn't building, because they do build most of the parks in town. But the nature park, which doesn't even really have a quote unquote name yet, right? It is known as the nature park, and the city is building that. And the way that happened is because the residents of this town, a group of them, got together and said, we want a nature park in this town. And they went to the city council and asked for it, went to the Parks and Recreation Commission, asked for it, put together a petition. And because it's something that we need, and there's nothing else like it in town, then the city council listened and has put it together. And now, I'm so sorry, Kurtej. I forgot what your question was, because I was thinking.
So how to, like you mentioned, nature park, so it doesn't really has its name. So if somebody or the citizens, they want to get involved in this process, so what are the options and opportunities? So they go to the city council meeting? Should they reach out to the city councils, city staff, Parks and Recreation Commission? So what are the options and opportunities in front of them?
So they can do that. That's a good way, particularly to go to the Parks and Recreation Commission, but also if you can go online to the city of Tracy and look at under the Parks and Recreation Department, there is a place on the city's website where it says you can feel free. They tell you when they think that another park might be coming up. And right now, I don't know when they think there might be another one coming up, but they are accepting names. And they even have a form that you can fill out and submit to them. So it's on the city's website, or you can just talk to your local planning and recreation commissioner or city council person as well. That's
right. So, Raj, anything comes to your mind with regards to this discussion?
No, I think this is very informative discussion that we had. I think Mary described a lot of good points in the information available on the City of Tracy's site, and especially for the related to Parks and Rec, or reach out to your any commissioner that you know, or you reach out to your council member if you know them, and I'm pretty sure they're very available to the public if somebody's reaching out to them, or just go to stop by a city hall and talk to a staff member. I'm pretty sure they'll be more than happy to navigate any citizen that whatever the information they're looking for. So there are a bunch of different options that can be utilized, and or if somebody doesn't know, reach out to Mary.
yes.
She will be there to help you out and navigate as well.
Yes, I would be happy to. Thank you.
Yeah, no, one last question I have, Mary, is your message for school and college going students, as you are very much involved in the society, you take your time to volunteer. So why is school going, college going student to at least think about volunteering, and why everybody should volunteer their time towards their society?
I think it is very important for students to get involved, because I think that particularly when they're young, it sets up like a lifelong habit. And as if you get started when you're young, when you're early, you can see, because sometimes it takes a long, long, long time for things to happen. For instance, this nature park, we are expecting an 86-acre park to be developed that is not going to be for sports. It's not going to be really for bicycles or skateboards or anything. It's going to be just for nature. There will be a passive use, which means it will be calm. There will be some picnic tables and some benches. And other than that, it's going to be nature. There will be animals and the views and the grass and trees. And that's about all that I can foresee, at least for the time being, which is all I really want, or anybody for a nature park I would expect would want. But I think I can see that from start to finish, it's going to take 10 years or more to get it done. So I would say, sometimes I think it can be hard for people who are in high school or are on their way to college to think, to have to work on something, to do something for 10 years is a really long time. But it sometimes, particularly with government around here, it takes that long to get things done. And so the sooner you get started, the sooner you figure out what it is that you want and get started on working on it, the sooner it's going to happen. I also think that there are so many other things. It doesn't have to be parks, but I am always happy to see when young people are getting involved in whatever their passion is, like building robots or learning foreign languages or making movies, whatever it is, doing art. I think I always like seeing young people doing things like that. So that'll be good for their whole lifetime. It is very fulfilling for your whole life to do something like that.
No, thank you very much, Mary. Sincerely appreciate your time and educating us on this topic. So we'll be meeting pretty frequently on other topics, whichever comes to your thought to educate the audience. It was very informative. So thank you for your time. And for our audience, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next week with an informative topic. Till then, stay healthy, stay informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurtesh. Thank you very much.